7 o'clock on Monday.
You know what that means?
You know what that means? It's stormy. Jordan, how are you?
I've never seen a spring with so many rainstorms and so little rain. Like we get storms and it's dry and there's like lightning and stuff, and then it rains like
barely anything.
Not at all. Yeah.
But it always smells so good when it rains.
Yep. Welcome to Monday night. Hello, everybody. I got the screen over here. So, Q&A.
Yep. So any questions you have, please put them down because then we have something to talk about.
This is legitimately one of the highlights of my week.
Right.
And I mean that I think in the back of my mind, I have this life where that I'm working towards where eventually this is one of the biggest like factors in what I contribute.
Right.
And so every week that we get to do it, it feels like a little, almost like a sample of what it'll be like someday whenever this is sort of that.
Yeah, no. And when everything's set up and completed,
right,
it's going to be something that we can just walk into and press record. And you'll see the rock is, I think the rock's done actually. Yeah, we're just going to be staining a couple things, putting some shrubbery and such.
I don't know if we can get it in there, but we need to pray no fires. Yeah, for sure. Because when you're not getting rain, guess what? Everything stays dry.
Yeah.
And so
anyway, yeah, we're it's almost done, and then we'll get like the set done, and then I can nail down
turnkey.
Sometimes literally nail down all the cables so that it's just something we can walk into and press record. But in the meantime, we kind of have to set everything up and tear it all down. But
what about you? Because you're naturally kind of a quiet person. Like I would say that most people, they see you at church, like you're busy, you're working on something and you're kind of quiet. Podcasts, how do you equate these like in your own life? Is it something you look forward to, or is it something you feel like is just a necessary part of the process? Or
yeah, no, I definitely, but I think from a different, for a different reason. I mean, it's almost like, this is almost like race day, you know, where I can work on the car and get it all ready and everything. And then like a podcast is like, all right, I hope everything works and you start racing. So it's fun for the gear for me, but then also you don't actually get to sit down and talk to somebody for an hour plus, you know?
Yeah.
So that's fun too. But yeah, I mean, everything spaghettied together. That's the fun part for me.
I had a conversation today with a guy, and I don't think I've ever said it, but I think one of the goals that I have in my life professionally, one of the things I want to see is that we get up to, now hear me on this, up to like 1,000 shares on a weekend. And here's why that number matters. Because you can't support that number in Central Oregon.
Right.
If you're hitting 1,000, that means that like you're saying, race day is being communicated so clearly that people outside of Central Oregon, people that don't have a personal connection in person here to Powell, Butte, also find it so meaningful and impactful that they feel like they want to be a part of it, even from being somewhere else. And we have a little bit of that now. But these kinds of things matter in that regard.
Right.
Because I want, my goal, simple path to Jesus, and that is not just specifically for Powell Butte. And I am so excited about what we're doing to develop the Powell Butte campus over the next 6 weeks too. But I think that's why this is, I don't know if I can, I don't know how to, it's podcast, you're supposed to say it in words, but I don't know how to put that in words in a way that makes sense of like, I want to know that we're doing a good enough job with what we do that people even outside of the little silo of Central Oregon go, I get it. I understand that. I needed that. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah. I mean, my thinking is the podcasts will turn into, literally it's like an open window, I guess you can say, where Sunday is kind of for a purpose. Yeah. I mean, it's for a purpose of people come in intentionally.
A church service cannot be too lighthearted. And every time you go to a church service where like you can tell someone is really angling, like we're going to be fun, and it loses some of its purpose because you're like, I don't want to just be here just to hang out. I want to know that today matters.
I mean, I think of it as like, the Sunday is the lecture. Yeah. And then, the podcasts are a bunch of different things, specifically like Monday nights is almost a tutoring session where any questions you have during the lecture, bring it up Monday and we can go over it. Also, but then also people just can ask any questions, not only about Sunday, but then we'll have other podcasts where it's just hanging out, so it's a bunch of different things, but
I like written questions because it gives people time to like kind of think it out. Taylor Round said, anything new with the 1017 project? Oh, is there? Is there ever?
Yeah.
This month. Well, yes, there is. We'll announce it later. We're going to get to it. We want to put it out. But yeah, our giving has gone just like,
yeah,
it's taken off. Some of the connections we were able to make in Texas, some of the people that we got to meet, I mean,
you said it Sunday that we gave away 40,000 pounds. Or we're not supposed to say that?
I don't know if we did that yet or not. I had a moment where I'm like, I should probably check with Holly. Holly, if you want to jump in here and give us an update. I know what's happening. But if that's, I feel like it hasn't happened yet. Okay, and so I feel like I should already know the answer to that.
Well, anyway. But it'd still be cool because, we made a video and it was a big deal when we got to 100,000 pounds.
Dude, it was a huge deal. Yeah. That was like monumental. That's we still have the dry erase board some here with the numbers on it. Yeah. And in June, we're going to hit like 45,000 pounds for the month of June.
Yeah. That's crazy.
That is huge. And we just have not done, I have not done a good job of pointing a spotlight to
I wonder if Mom is watching right now.
You did tell us Sunday, says Valerie. Taylor, let me ask you, is there anything new with you? Put in the comments. I want to know. Okay, Holly says 40,000 pounds being delivered to Oregon Food Bank. It's this Thursday.
Thursday.
Okay, so there it is. Mom, now I can talk about it.
Yeah, since you're watching this, Mom, how much have we donated total? Do we have that number? Because if it was 40,000 pounds or this next month.
No. 40,000 pounds on Thursday.
Right.
Not to mention the 10 head that went in last week.
So I'm like, are we past 200,000?
For you guys that don't know, the 1017 project donates hamburger. We incorporate team ropings and team roping cattle and pasture and all kinds of fun stuff.
Right.
But the intended purpose of giving away hamburger over 100 tons. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. A ton is 2,000 pounds. So that'd be 200,000 pounds.
That's crazy.
100 tons we went from 100,000 to 200,000. But still.
Yeah, still. Yes, over to that. Wow, that's crazy.
Over 200,000. Okay, so back to my point about 100 or 1,000 shares. I want to talk about this because I want people to understand why it matters when we ask people to share. Here's why it matters. The better you do at something, the better you do at something. Like the bigger it gets, the bigger it gets. And the reason big matters is because people matter and our reach. And I want to do such a good job. Not that we're like artificially creating results, but just like that, it took us how long to get to 100,000 pounds of hamburger? Years.
Right.
And then bam, 200,000 was like right on the heels of that.
Yeah.
So the better it goes, the better it goes. And I want to do a better job so that as it grows, it begins to catch its own momentum. Because I feel like there are times where we carry a lot of the momentum of Shiloh, which is fine. The people in Powell Butte carry so much of the vision of Shiloh. And I'm excited for the day where it starts to kind of create its own momentum, the self-perpetuating momentum. Mm-hmm. The reason giving is important is that we've got this vision of what we want to accomplish. And, churches that talk about giving just for the sake of giving, that one kind of loses me a little bit. I want to do a better job at what we're already doing. If you want to know where we're going, look at where we've been. That's where we're headed.
Right.
So that's why when I say like the 100,000 to 200,000, I had a friend one time, his grandpa was really wealthy. And I said, I was like 18. It was just a mouthy little 18-year-old, and I said, hey, could you give me $1 million? And he said, me and my buddies were there.
Right.
And it's their grandpa. And he goes, I could. Which that alone, to an 18-year-old kid who's like eating bologna. I'm like, you could? He goes, I could. But then I'd have to give those two dummies $1 million, and I don't like them that much. And then he said this.
Okay.
It took me 65 years to make my first million and 2.5 months to make my second.
Wow.
So I say that to say this. When we do, I say $1 million, separate that from the point I'm saying. Okay. Like as we begin to do these better, as it begins to catch its own momentum, I believe there's a section, a group of people that are being missed by the gospel right now because they feel so disconnected from the approach of a traditional church.
Right.
Feeding people to me is such a universal language, that kind of stuff. And so I'm going to start, I guess maybe I've been kind of hesitant about why is 1,000 shares important? Because it creates momentum. It pushes what we do further into communities where people, like we hear people all the time, like, how did I not know this church existed? This is exactly what I've been looking for. They're asking questions that we're specifically speaking answers to. Yeah. And so,
I found it, at a time when I was trying to find answers and I guess with anything, but you go into any kind of different world and somebody has to even be there to tell you what to Google. So for instance, I'm learning about fiber optic cable, right? Because we're trying to communicate.
Of course you are.
We're trying to communicate from the studio to the church building. I'm learning about fiber optic cable. When I first went into that, I'm like, what do I even Google?
What am I supposed to know about this?
So I had to go through the entire process, 15, 16 hours to figure out that I needed fiber optic cable.
Right.
And then, okay, we blah, 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 blah. Versus now I can just tell somebody if they're like, how do I get from one building to the other? I'm like, oh, just use this, versus
once you know it.
Exactly. So, so it's the same thing, meaning if you know it, if you felt that, if you were the person that says, where was this place?
Right. And I feel like that's what we're getting now.
Right.
Is I need this. And what I'm saying is like, I know that's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Can anyone please help me with food for me and my family? We've been struggling these past few weeks, so anything can help. Yes, actually, we can help you with food. Absolutely. Good evening, Greg. I'm going to read my comments here so I don't have to turn all the way around.
Okay.
Taylor Rounds, tell us about the full. How's it bread? Keto says geometric progression and beef donation, and it's happening with people plugging in a Shiloh Ranch. Geometric progression. I like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's why this is important. We're going to get to the sermon, but in the meantime, to get to hear back and it's almost like on a Sunday, you're sort of just hitting the ball out into the crowd, right? And then on Monday, you kind of get to play back and forth a little bit and hear questions. And
yeah. No, it's exciting. So, input on Sunday.
Yeah, boy, I want to talk about preaching to myself.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
Blech. Big time. Brandon Grindle goes, man, I wish you hadn't preached that. I'm going to go home and delete all my social media.
Yeah. No, it's interesting timing because it was actually Sunday morning. And I never know what you're going to preach about until you're preaching it. And it was actually Sunday morning where I was like, you know what? I'm just like in all aspects of my life, I've just stopped, trying, where working out, eating healthy, social media, whatever it is, I'm just like, so then I said, you know what, I'm, turning over a new leaf. I joke with Wesley about that all the time, but I'm done. I always open my phone and just start watching YouTube and all these different things. And I say it's good for me because I'm learning about something, but most of the time I'm just watching like yesterday I watched a cruise ship compilation of them hitting things. Super interesting, not actually learning.
Right.
So it's just, garbage intake, and I could be spending that doing whatever, but it's interesting timing.
I was, in researching for Sunday, I was listening to like opinions from people in the 50s talking about TVs, and their concern was that it was shortening people's attention span.
Okay.
That it was damaging our ability to focus on something and stick with something because the TV provides light, it's colors, it's like changing camera angles. I struggle. I've noticed this, that I struggle to tune into something like a podcast if I'm not outside doing something with my headphones on. Like if I'm sitting at the house, I got to have like stimulus or else I just kind of space out.
Right.
And so I heard them talking about that back in the 50s. And I'm thinking like, man, if that guy could hear what we're going through now, like if they were concerned about it then, they should see TikTok.
Yeah.
Like 60 seconds, just rapid fire, new info. And like the input, I think, has been log jammed so that nothing new can get in.
Right.
We are so not intentional about our what's coming in that we're always questioning what's coming back out. Why am I depressed? Why am I sad? Right. Why don't I feel challenged? Why am I not in shape? All these outputs, and like at the same time where no one, myself included, is going, wait, am I really paying attention to what's coming in through my eyes and my ears and my filters? Like, what am I even paying? And truthfully, I think that's the problem is when you're distracted, you don't stop and think like, am I taking in anything that's healthy?
Right. My dad has a saying that he has said to us for our entire lives about that, but more specifically, content in general. Because we were kids, he's like saying, don't watch, scary movies and don't listen to bad music and that kind of stuff. He said, if you just eat Twinkies over and over and over again, you're going to not realize that somebody's putting turds in your Twinkies. So you have to like, so he always says, you can wrap a turd in a Twinkie and it still looks like a Twinkie. So it's like, the idea of inspect everything what?
It just like lit up outside. Like
Oh,
it came
it's
through.
stormy,
It came
stormy.
through the. Sorry, it looked like somebody was flashing a like a spotlight through the window there.
Jeez.
Sorry,
I get to see like through a window, and it's just crazy.
that's wild. Sorry, I'm sorry. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is like, I remember as a kid, don't listen to that. It's not good for you. And I'd listen to it.
Right.
I'd be like, I don't feel any different.
Mm-hmm.
And my measuring stick was too immediate.
Right.
I didn't consider, I heard one time parenting. So somebody said that the days are long, the years are short. And I think that's the same with our input. What we take in over the course of a day seems like no big deal. What we take in over the course of a year has a giant impact.
Right.
And we begin to change and shift. I mean, same with our diets. Like if
Right.
you're like really, really fit and really athletic and you're really active and taking care of yourself and you eat a Twinkie, you can be like, I don't feel any different.
Right.
But over the course of the year, you're like, man, like the links to mental health,
Right.
just with our physical diet. And so then when you start looking at Daniel, you look at an invasion, and when they invaded, what they started to try to do is reestablish new culture.
Right.
By demanding the inputs. Okay, we're getting comments. I got to get caught up. It's beautiful out here, says Jason. I read more of my Christian Bakes books yesterday because of your message. Thank you. Yes. As you preach, take your mind into informative places, reading selective information input, not mindless input.
Is Jason here?
He's in Central Oregon. Do you know that he's been to 14 states this year working shoots? He is
Jason, man.
killing it.
He needs to sit down.
Wait, are we getting some rain?
Oh, we're getting everything.
I feel like I'm going to probably get on people's nerves on this podcast tonight because I'm just all over the place. But if we get some rain, that's good. That's
Really good.
Yeah.
If nothing else, for the allergies.
I feel like that our camera maybe right there is focused on something not at the table. See, like when you see that, maybe it's my phone. Okay, sorry everyone. I'll get back on. Okay, I'm back. But yeah, you look at Daniel, and one of the things that Daniel said was like, don't affect my diet. Let me stick with the diet that we've been instructed to have. Well, what he's saying is, let me hold to the patterns that God has put in place for us. And I mean, I think that is exactly what I'm talking about with the inputs. If you want to really make it like a significant input or output change, look at the input. Look at what's coming in through your eyes, coming in through your ears, what you're eating, like paying attention to it in a way that's meaningful.
Right. I've heard it said, and I was thinking about it today because I was writing something up, and you know, somebody would say, who do you want to be? Don't even think about, anything else. Just who, what would be awesome, And it's like, whoa, it'd be cool to be, a missionary or a Marine or whatever it is. And then think about, are you willing to put in the energy and the work to make that happen?
It is. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. Well, no, I mean, and so because a lot of times I've found that when you're in a spot where you're just, a year of Twinkies and you're like, this is impossible.
Right.
But still understanding that it's like, it's a daily thing that turns into a yearly thing that turns into a lively thing. Just putting in that day stimuli.
That's the concept of learned helplessness.
Right.
Learned helplessness. They had an experiment on dogs actually, and they would make a sound. If I'm getting the details not exactly right, but they'd make a sound and then they would shock them.
Right.
And there was no way for them to get out. And then pretty soon they moved the parameters completely out, and they would make the sound. And the dog had the option to get away, and they wouldn't, because over time they'd learned no matter what I do, they had disconnected. This is like in my life hugely impactful. I have to remind myself that God has you in a season, or there's a period of time, or you go through a season of failure, or whatever the case may be. You start to disconnect that your action and your outcome are connected.
Right.
You start to feel like, well, my action has no impact. No matter what I do, it never changes. I can never affect my outcome. And so you just give up. And it's called learned helplessness.
Right.
And I think sometimes if we don't ever address the input, we're just trying to affect the output, and the input is just garbage. We're like, we give up. We're like, well, this is just what life is. I had a friend talking about, I almost hesitate to say names. I probably won't say names, but it's his story to tell. But he was talking about his kid, and his kid has really struggled in life. And this is a guy who has been a very successful coach and trainer, world famous coach and trainer. And his son has struggled. And he said because of the decisions that his son made early on, he struggled and he wasn't successful. The way he described it would be like if you put a piranha in a fish tank and you separated him from his food with a fiberglass wall, and he would try to get to the goldfish and eat them, and try to get the goldfish and eat them, and he'd just bang his head against the fiberglass. Eventually, you could take that wall out, the separations out.
He won't even try.
He won't even make an attempt.
Right.
And I think that is probably where we see a lot of people in their walk is exactly what you're saying. It's like we don't ever question the Twinkies. We just question the weight gain, and we go, well, it doesn't matter what I do. It never makes any difference.
Right.
And we've been invaded. $242 billion spent in the U.S. last year on advertising, because what they know is if it can capture our thoughts, it's got us. Period. End of discussion. Whatever we focus on, whatever we give our focus to, has our actions. Our actions will absolutely follow our focus.
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, make a determination of what you want your life to look like, and then go establish the inputs that would lead to that.
Right.
Instead of looking at how do I affect the outcome, go back and go, well, what kind of income or input would that take?
Right.
So
I mean, some of the most successful branding in advertising, I mean, it's I hate that it works, because then people do it more, but just kill you with the same commercial over and over and over again until you think of the product or the category,
right?
And that's what pops into your head. My grandpa brought it up the other day. He's like, he was like, have you been watching like TV or the news or anything recently? I was like, no, not really. And he's like, well, if you had, you'd know that every 15 seconds is a my pillow commercial. It's just a pillow,
right?
But
right.
It's just like, boom, the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And if you heard it once, it's like, all right, cool. But the 10,000th time you've heard it,
you can't get it out of your head.
You can't get it out of your head. Now you know every word to the commercial. And then the same thing with
you see it. You see their kids, like when they were young, the songs that they could repeat back in their head that you're from a commercial. And you're like, how do you remember that?
Right.
They've just heard it over and over again. And so whatever's coming in,
right.
Like I said, I was watching it was a Dave Portnoy pizza review on Barstool. And I again, spacing out, giving myself a period of time to space out. And I'm sitting there and he's talking about this pizza or whatever. And pretty soon I'm like, I have pizza in the fridge.
Yeah.
Like there is a direct connection between whatever holds your attention. And so if our attention span is being shortened, that's a dangerous thing, because it means that our long-term effectiveness is going to be fragile. Yeah. Like our output is more fragile if we can't be disciplined to stay focused on something.
I've directly seen that in me, that my attention span has shortened, and it will continue. I mean, it never was necessarily good in the first place, because
but that's an invasion. If that's the case, like Babylon invading Jerusalem, we get that. Like, oh, that's terrible. That's an invasion. Somebody capturing our thoughts and our attention, that's more invading, because they will based on capturing your attention, turn you into a slave to that product.
Right.
And I think comparison, I think that's how you spend money. You can't talk people into spending money without comparison.
Right.
So everything is based, like everything that you watch, everything that comes in is based on comparing your life to someone who might be happier and trying to keep up the pace. And that's the opposite of the word. The word talks about contentment. And how do you guys stay focused? Taylor, here's how I stay focused. This may not work for everybody. I have to stay busy. Mm-hmm. I have to stay busy. And if I can put my headphones in and listen to a podcast about whatever topic I really want to know more about, like if I'm riding or open the dummy, or if I'm driving, or if I'm working outside, or whatever I'm doing, I really do. And I don't know if this is ADD or not. I've never been diagnosed, but I question it.
Right.
It's hard for me just to sit and look at something.
Yeah.
If I'm busy, and if I would have known this when I was in school, I think I would have been a much better student. The reason I struggled with school is I couldn't sit there and make myself care about whatever I was supposed to be learning. I didn't care. I couldn't make myself care. And if I can stay busy working on something else, then I've always got the right amount of input coming in. And even in my podcast, it's not all Christian podcasts, but I try to make sure that every single day I'm stopping, I'm clearing a space, and I'm giving God the opportunity to speak back into my thinking.
Right.
Because if you're to ask a person, how many of you read the Bible at a church? This is a church. This is a stated collective concept of belief in a group of people. How many of you read your Bible every day right now?
Yeah.
I think we would be shocked at the lack of positive spiritual input that people have. And then it's like, man, living for God's impossible, to the point that we change the standard. We go, okay, this is living for God, and this is what the life of living for God should produce. Well, that's impossible. So we bring it all the way down until we've changed what God has said about what it means to live for God. Keita says, we have more control over our thoughts than we realize. Reading, educational podcasts, solitude, and reflection. Absolutely. Well, to me, that's why stuff like this is important, is that if we get 15 or 20 minutes of somebody's time to talk about the fact that God has a plan. How many times have you just sat, this is what happens to me. I'll sit and I'll be like, how did I forget that God is in control of everything?
Right.
And that if I will give him the best that I have to give,
right,
he can take that and make it work. Or even if I get it wrong, I remind myself of times he's brought things back, or I did it wrong and he made it work. If I'll just stop and let that kind of permeate my thinking for 10 minutes,
right,
I'm okay. Like, and I don't.
Well, because it's a invasion. I mean,
we've been invaded and we allow it.
Yeah. I mean, I try to think of, I can't necessarily think of a input that doesn't say I'm in control of my life. I mean, college and
then questioning, like, are you doing it right?
Right. You know, and it's like, you're in control. Go to this thing or have this thing because it will make you do this and this and this, and you'll be successful because of this. I mean, so of course we forget that the Lord has everything.
Well, and that we're loved.
Right.
That constant tension that we always feel, always, that's a choice.
Right.
We have the freedom in Christ to take time and just stop. Right. I mean, to me, rest is such an active thing, because if I just go neutral, my thoughts take off and I'm not resting. I have to like actively rest, which is to say, like, God, I'm not gonna do that today.
Right.
Like sitting there at the house and it'll be 10 o'clock at night and something will come up, and Lacey and I are getting better about going like, wait, no, we're not doing that, because it affects our rest. And then by the time you fall asleep, all you can think about is what if it goes wrong. And it's an epidemic. Like, it's not a one sermon solution. It is a theme that we have got to have. I mean, I hope I can remember quarterly to bring it back up of like, hey, are we addressing the invasion? Are we addressing the fact that God is not getting any airtime, and that the world, nothing. I mean, the input is always open. Here's the problem: the input is always open, and it's not like the enemy's going to play fair and be like, yeah,
right.
I'll take the day off.
I've been looking at and learned a lot about dopamine detox, is what people call it, which, I mean, is basically the same thing. And I see it differently now as, you know, input detox, because just like you said, you know, our attention span is shortening, and so we're so used to a release of dopamine every time we scroll.
Right.
I mean, and TikTok is the worst because it's just video.
It's always reading you, deciding what you like, and showing you more of it.
Right.
Whatever it is that you kind of have a tendency, like hunting. I love hunting.
Right.
Then you look up hunting videos.
Right.
You like cars, girls.
Right.
Whatever the thing is that grabs your attention, it reads it based on your reaction and gives you more of that. And it's designed to
literally a drug.
Hold your attention.
Right. And so then you do something not like that, where, you know, a project, a job, sitting down and reading the Bible, a relationship, everything suffers because your brain is used to that high octane dopamine.
Right.
So then when you go back to normal life, of course you're depressed, because that's how the body works.
Yeah,
I mean, that's literally
deficient.
I mean, people say, so MDMA, right? So Molly, the drug. The drug literally just floods your brain with dopamine. That's what it does.
Which is like the reward center.
Right. It's like, you know, you eat an apple, it tastes good, and you like it, and dopamine gets released. Well, then once people come off of the drug and they, you know, the drug wears off, they go into a depression because their brain was so
overstimulated,
used to that high octane that life doesn't seem as interesting. And so that's the same thing, but just a slightly less with social media.
It's like microdosing over a long period of time.
Exactly. Yeah. So then you stop doing it and you're depressed.
Right.
You know, your relationships in your life are less than your social media relationships.
Right.
And so then you're just sitting there with your loved one and it's like, this isn't as interesting, you know, versus if there was no social media and you're reading a book, you're like, this is the most interesting thing I've ever seen.
Right.
You know, or wow, look at that stick. I'm going to turn it into
There's an actual reward center.
Exactly. Right.
Associated with effort. And I think that's what's so what's so fascinating and terrifying is that we have got this artificial reward center that is not connected to any amount of action or effort at all. And that's terrifying to me because we are becoming inactive. Well, if you think about it, if you were to put somebody in a jail cell, they'd be like, no, this is terrible. How's that different than their living room if they never leave it, if they're laying on the couch all the time? I mean, we're putting people in prisons, controlling their thoughts, telling them how to spend their money, telling them where to spend their money, telling them how to feel, how to compete in the social market. But the world is dictating that to people. But because we've chosen it, we don't recognize that we're in bondage. There's a slavery attached to it.
Have you read Fahrenheit 451, the book?
I have not.
So Wesley, Levi, and I, and John, anyway, we all read it together, and it is crazy how similar it is to that. It's basically a world where they're like, we got rid of all the pain. Yay.
Oof.
Oh, except, you watch, you listen, you have something constantly. And the whole idea is they burn books, and they don't even know why they burn books anymore. But the whole idea is to take away every point of view except the one that they like screen and they say is okay.
Maoist China.
So, so it's literally...
Do you know that, is it conspiracy? Is that the word that Mao had removed from the Chinese dictionary?
I have no idea.
I think he had the word conspiracy removed from the dictionary.
Can you look that up, Jamie?
But he wanted to take the concept away. So to take the concept away, he took the word away. Because if the word, and I think the word was conspiracy or censorship or something that would be like, wait a minute, that seems like an important
If there isn't
concept.
a word for it, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and so you start thinking of it in terms like that, you're like, oh my gosh, that's terrifying to think the willful captivity that people are signing up for right now.
Yeah. So, okay, how did that apply to so moving on in the sermon's storyline.
Well, different evasions. One of the things was the soil, that God's word is a seed. And this one is so terrifying. That God's word is a seed and it gets planted in the soil, but before it takes in input, before the word turns into input into the soil, it gets blocked and the birds come and steal it and leave. That's literally like coming to church. You hear something, you're like, man, that makes a lot of sense. I should do that. You walk outside, you get on your phone, you don't think about it for another week. The word that landed doesn't get planted. Okay. It never turns into input. And because it never turns into input, you never see it show up as output. So it doesn't matter how much sense it makes. If it's never applied, don't be hearers of the word, be doers of the word. Put it into practice. And I think that's an invasion. And it says that the harvest was held in the seed, right? Mm-hmm. But because it never went into input, it never turned into a harvest, right? It never came back out as output.
Right.
Which means if Jesus isn't enough, nothing else will be. Absolutely. When the bird stole what looked like a seed, what the enemy was taking, because what the soil had rejected, was an entire harvest. Like this entire shape of production that the soil had the ability to produce, the bird took a seed, but he didn't take a seed, he took a harvest.
Right.
And so when the word lands, I think that's something that I wish I would have done a better job communicating. When you hear the word of God, there is a harvest in that. It's not just, oh yeah, that makes sense. That sounds good. It's wait a minute.
Yeah.
What would that look like if it was accepted and put into practice? What kind of harvest would that result in my relationships, in my mental health, in my physical activities, my faith, my confidence, my trust? What would that look like? Also, Cain and Abel, that was one of the things that I thought was so interesting about that verse, is that it says, where's your brother? He said, my brother's keeper. And God says, the blood of Abel calls out to me from the ground. Well, if you go back to the original Greek, that word is bloods. So what he's saying is...
Oh, so it's not just him, it's all of his grandkids.
It's Abel and his kids and his grandkids and his lineage. And I wonder sometimes if the input is blocking a harvest of generations, like that lives and generations of people are bound up in our thinking.
Yeah.
Like generations of people are going to be affected if I don't learn how to recapture, and reclaim my thinking that's been invaded by this outside world.
Interesting.
That my wife, her life is going to be affected. My kids, their life is going to be affected. Their kids' lives are going to be affected, because as a dad, as the patriarch of my family, I'm going through this battle in my thinking, learning how to create better input so that I can create better output. And that's the harvest. There's harvests of results available
Right.
if I can be intentional about what goes in through my filters.
Right. And letting the seeds land and think about them.
Right.
Wow.
You said something the other day that I thought was so fascinating, and I was kind of guilty. I feel guilty about it, but I called Lydia. We were something about Jet, and we were sitting here together, and so I was going to call Lydia and tell her quit being so soft on Jet. He's interning, my son interning here, and she didn't answer. And you go, yeah, she probably doesn't have her phone on her. She doesn't do that. And I'm like,
right. Which is a good thing. Yeah.
Well, so here's my quandary. Here's my quandary is I can't sit and read a book. My mind wanders.
Right.
But I can listen to my headphones. So I've always got my phone. And I mean, I'm trying to find this balance of like, when is the silence? Right. When does the silence happen? Because that's what I need. Yeah. I need silence.
Well, and the same thing, we have input constantly, visually, audio, and then we're sleeping. And then we wake up, visual, audio.
What's the first
sleeping.
thing you do when you get out of bed?
Exactly right. So when we actually just sit there with our own thoughts, it is so loud and obnoxious that we immediately have to get on something to just quiet our own brains.
And imagine this. Your inputs have been dictated to you by the world. You have a moment of silence and you look up and you have to face the reality of what the output of your life looks like.
Right.
And you're like, that's too heavy. I don't want to deal with that right now.
Right.
I can't address the fact that I'm not going anywhere in life, that I'm not progressing the way that I thought I would. I'm not as far along as I thought I would be. I'm in debt. I'm not spending my money wisely. I don't know where I'm at with God. And you're like, no. Now the distraction becomes anesthetizing life issues that you don't want to deal with.
Right.
And you go back, and when you go back, you find more comparison and you find more distraction. And I think that's the reason we've become political worshipers in this country. Is politics is such a good distraction from the reality of our output that we're not tending to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, politics is like a reality show that you have stakes in.
I know that it matters, and I want to be careful because I know that politics matter, but they only matter as much as they matter.
Right.
They don't, like throughout history, look at the times where God allowed the Israelites to fall into persecution, and he used political power structures that seem like struggling to the benefit of Israel and the chosen people. And you go, no, wait a minute. Why is my political ideals, why does that feel like the ultimate goal?
Right.
Politics matter, but they only matter as much as they matter. Keto said, if you practice roping, research for sermons, work on 1017, work on silent meditation of God's word. And I think I'm going to get to that in a second. I started reading a book and have some downtime, not just going, and it's driving my brain crazy with no noise. Have you ever listened to Jason when he's got his phone, he doesn't have his headphones with him, and he's listening to his music, work and shoots? It's loud. It's like, he's just in the work zone. It's fun to listen to.
Intense.
If we seek the Lord with all our hearts, we'll find him. See, and I think that's, what do we do in our life with our whole hearts anymore, ever?
Yeah, it's a good point.
What are we fully dedicated to? You know, we, like you said, microdosing dopamine throughout our day. What do we have in our lives that are worth dying for? You think about, like, for instance, the beaches in Normandy, those young men that are giving up their lives because they believed in something, and that feels so foreign. Yeah. We don't feel like people that would give our lives to pursue anything anymore. We feel like people who are casually connected to everything.
I mean, this is a conspiracy thought. It's probably not even needed. But think about it. If a world war happened right now.
Oh, what was that?
If a world war. World war. Okay, thank you.
I'm ready for a world war. I'm listening.
How many people our age, Levi and Wesley, would just, I mean, there was kids that were 16 that were lying about being 18
because they wanted so badly.
They wanted to play a part and contribute.
Yeah.
I mean, our age group is like not super pumped on America right now. And
is it that they're not, honest question, is it that they're not pumped on America, or is it they're not pumped on anything?
Anything. And that's a good point, because a huge thing that
celebrity
people say,
boxing matches.
Exactly right.
That's like,
and yeah, I mean, versus like, you know, the America being a place where they're like, you can make a life. Yeah, you have to work for it. We're not going to hand it to you, but you can make a life. Where else can you do that? And just do whatever you want. If you want to be a bum, you can be a bum here. If you want to be a enterprise owning business guy, you can do that here. It's going to take work. But now, I don't know. This is going off track. But I mean, the same thing. The inputs that we've been getting. I mean, if it was the enemy's goal to like
entrap
us, it would be slowly exposing us to things of like, we don't even have anything to fight for, so why fight?
There's a story about boiling the frog, right? Like they put one in the water and it's too hot. You've heard this. They put a frog in the water, it's too hot, he jumps right out. The other one, they put him in there, it's just right, and they slowly boil it over time until eventually they cook him because it happens slowly and gradually. Right. And I mean, like I said, it's like the bottom falls out and you go, I have not been intentional about any of my inputs. I remember, if my mom is watching, Mom, I am so sorry, because I get it maybe now. I remember my mom walking into my room and holding my Tupac CD, and she was so mad. She was so mad. California. And I was like, what?
Right.
What's the big deal? Like, I'm not going to join a gang, Mom. Like, calm down. Her point, and she didn't communicate it as this exactly in the moment, but what she was trying to say is that input matters. Like what you bring in through your filters does matter. Now, I'm not in the world, not of the world. Like I'm not of the belief that you have to completely extract yourself from the entire world and never listen to anything unless it's
right.
But I am saying it's got to be given an opportunity. It's got to be given a chance, because the world is so countercultural to the word. Like if you look at the culture of the Bible, at the intended culture of the followers of Jesus, and you look at the American society right now, they're things different. And then we don't even question. That's what I was saying, and I don't know if this was probably a little edgy, but that's what I was saying about, I've always heard people say, like, that's the difference between most cultures and the white culture. The white culture doesn't say, this is how white people do it. They go, this is how it's done.
Right.
Every other culture is like, this is how we do it. This is a Latin way of doing things. This is like a Middle Eastern way of doing things. This is a black way of doing things. These are whatever. And white people just go, well, that's just how it is. That's just the right way of doing it. And I think when that's one of the challenges I face, like as a teacher, is you come in and you present something from the word, and they go, yeah, no, Imagine preaching on the concept that sex before marriage.
Did the power just go out?
Yeah. Power just went out.
What about louder?
We're up
live?
Hello, everyone.
Wait, we are? We're live again?
It must be the storm.
Okay, do me a favor. If you're out there and you're listening, comment something.
Comment. So the power literally went out.
Yeah.
So that was weird.
Yeah, it was strange.
We're back up, though.
We're back up. What were we talking about?
World War III.
World War III.
I can't remember. Tornadoes, maybe?
Tornadoes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But that was one of the things about, like, everybody wants a Daniel in the Lion's Den.
Tupac?
Oh, I think we were talking about Tupac. Yeah, I don't remember where I was going with that. But you go to Daniel chapter 6, and you see him guarding his inputs again when they pass the decree. We're back live again. All right. Wow, I did. I think everybody wants these global results in their life. They want to know that, like, if they were faced with a Lion's Den moment,
right,
that there's something they would live for. And we really underestimate the chapter 1 moment of, like, let me just continue to guard my inputs at a dietary level.
Right.
Like the little micro obedience moments. And then when he's faced with life or death, he's like, man, this is what I've been doing.
Right.
I don't want to die. I don't think that's what we're saying. Like that you want, I don't think anybody would have chose that, but that's how committed he was.
I was talking to Levi about this the other day, and I said, Levi, do you think a little church in Powell Butte could bring somebody to Jesus? And he was like, yeah, I think a church in Powell Butte could bring somebody to Jesus. Then I said, and do you think Jesus can change the world? It's like, yeah, I think Jesus can change the world. So we and anybody else that talks about Jesus to people or just in general, you can actually actively play a role in changing the world.
And how quickly do people dismiss that? It's like, that sounds like something my mommy would say.
Yeah, but I mean, the same thing where you actually stop and think about it. It's like, what do you actually believe, though?
Yeah. The truth is, I don't think people believe in much anymore.
Right.
I don't think that believing in something, because like I said, there is that learned helplessness.
Hello.
That,
We're down. 1 sec. I could hotspot it.
That would be rough. I don't think that'd be enough power. Go check the router.
Yeah, 1 sec. It's loading. So.
Might go live. California. Huh? Not. Could you go?
Lydia's watching. She's probably, this podcast is terrible.
She said that?
No.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh.
Ouch. So the power's on.
We have Wi-Fi, but like the provider might have gone out. If that makes sense.
Oh.
Yeah, because like we're
because it's
connected,
not
so we have power, but it quite literally be
It blew like.
a line or something.
What if it exploded the tower?
Should I try a hotspot?
Sure, because if we could just go live along
say,
that
"Hey, guys."
and just be like, guys,
This isn't working.
the Lord doesn't want us to do this.
This is why we don't do them live.
Outputs. All right, 1 sec.
Word.
Inputs and outputs.
Inputs, outputs.
We just got outputted, dude.
We got put out.
The Lord just literally fell down fire on our podcast.
You guys are boring tonight. Shut it off.
Okay, we're hotspotted. We're gonna try it again.
Okay. All right. Now,
Hold on.
real quick.
We're not live.
We're live.
We are live.
We're back.
All right. Are we? Is this happening?
It's live.
Yikes. Take cover.
We're on a.
Is this happening?
Hotspot,
I'm downstairs trying to call my freaked out border collie McNabb down. Yeah.
Oh, my dog is probably losing it.
Boy, that really affected our followers. We ate now.
I'm worried about my dog.
Well, should we wrap it up because we don't know how long we're gonna be?
Hey, I'm going to bet Jet's dog is going crazy right now.
I'll put money on that.
Jet's dog.
Because Jet's dog is always going crazy about everything.
I'm gonna get back home. And my whole house is just gonna be torn apart.
Yeah. Levi got an apartment.
What?
Everybody go visit.
Wait a
it,
minute, isn't that
bring
kinda
him
big
flowers.
news?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Get your dogs inside. Yeah. Jet's dog just freaks out because she's awake. She goes from like freaking out to asleep back to freaking out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Inputs, outputs. Here's a good example. Storm knocked out the output. It's almost over to Prineville now. No rain. No rain.
all right. Well, anyway, thank you guys for
It's a
watching.
weird one this week.
Yeah.
Hey, we're getting close to being able to like put some other podcasts this week out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Basically, yeah, exactly. We're just going to start doing them, just putting them out and filming them, and they're going to turn out fine.
They're going to be amazing.
So it's going to be great.
Sorry, everybody. But I agree with what we said. I didn't say anything we feel like we need to take back.
Yeah. No,
Cool beans.
everything was good. Well, thank you guys for joining. We'll see you next week.
7 o'clock Monday night.
7
Hey,
o'clock Monday night.
take notes. Joe.
Take notes.
Joe Pearson's preaching Sunday. I'll be taking
Right.
notes, and we will be talking about someone else's sermon next week.
Blow up Jordan's DMs.
Yeah, with questions. All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye.